They party too much, they have sex a lot, and they make a lot of noise.
While having sex.
I didn't mention that. I didn't say that, Harish. I didn't say whether it was the noises during the sex or the party.
What I want to say to our LGBTQ brothers and sisters around the world is we need to find our allies, like Srira Meyer, for example, and Business Insider.
Where people have made fun of trans women and transgender individuals, right? So, but that is something I would never support, and it's very wrong.
When I compare it with America and other places, we are a little bit better off in that sense that the homosocial behavior is being accepted, where two men could hang around together or two women can hang around together.
Hi everyone, welcome to Business Insider. This is Sriram Iyer, and what a show we've got for you this time around. We've got a colorful, panel of guests. This is about pride. This is special, and this is a conversation that's going to be very different from a lot of other, conversations that you've seen about LGBTQ rights. And what we're going to do today is to talk about the way forward. It's not about what happened in the past, the discrimination, the struggles, and I think progress is taking it to the next level and the next step. There will always be irritants, people who don't like you for what you're saying, but we ought to push the envelope a little bit, and that's what we're going to do today. And for that, we have a spectacular set of people, as you can see on your screens. Manvendra Singh Gohil, a human rights activist, famous as the gay prince, and he's made waves for us. Our reporters have been writing about him, and people around the world lap it up. It goes viral every time Preeti Soni writes about him. Similarly, we have Nitasha Biswas, India's first transgender beauty queen. Again, one of Business Insider's favorite, and we keep, we're absolutely proud of you, Nitasha, for your achievements and the way you have, overcome your struggles in life. And Harish Iyer, my brother and a very famous activist in this space. No debate in this country around LGBTQ issues is complete without him on the panel. I think, and last but not the least, is a very special guest who's joining us at 4 a.m. in the morning. That's where he is. Mo Vela, former advisor to Joe Biden, the current challenger to Donald Trump in the US in the upcoming elections. Mo Vela is special because he is a gay man from a conservative Texas, the southern part of America, which is infamous for its lack of liberal values, if I can say that, Mo. And of course, the fact that he's not just overcome the discrimination in his community, in the places that he lives in, but he managed to make it through to be a senior executive at the White House, not once, but twice. And once again, this time around in an election year, he is out there, batting for Joe Biden and raking up votes from all those people who love him a lot across America. Thank you, each one of you, for joining us here. And like I said, it's a promise that this is a show that's not going to talk about, it's not going to be philosophical, it's not going to be preachy. Each one of us is going to tell stories that will engage you this Friday. And I'm going to start the story on behalf of Mo. My first story today is Mo Vela's, the way he got, it's a fascinating story because this happened sometime in the late 90s. He writes about it in his book. He was employed with the White House. He was working with Al Gore at that time. And a bunch of national security, sleuths, investigators, kept snooping into his bedroom and, watching what he was up to with his gay partner at that time, and eventually sort of things came to a hilt more. But Al Gore put his weight behind you. He backed you. You didn't have to leave your job. And I think that is a telling example to start the show with, that, there will always be these problems. But if your boss, if people who you are reporting to, people who are responsible for you, decide to back you, that is an example that everybody must follow. My first question to you, Mo, is that we've come 20 years since then, right? And this example was set in the White House 20 years ago. But America has not, it has not been a linear progression in terms of acceptance for LGBT people or any kind of sexual or gender minority, or the discriminated people, whether it is based on gender, color, race, whatever. So is this something that India should prepare for, that it will always be 2 steps forward and 1 step back?
Wow. Regrettably, first of all, let me say there's nobody on the earth I'd wake up at 4 a.m. for except all of you and the people of India, because one of the greatest nations on the earth with some of the most beloved, incredible people on the earth. I got up at 4 o'clock. I didn't sleep well last night because I was so excited to be with each of you. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I'm really honored to be with every one of you. So look, is it 3 steps forward? Yes. Unfortunately, the reality is it will probably be 3 steps forward, 2 steps back for a long while to come. But let me tell you, I like to focus on the positive things in life. And the positive part of that, in my humble opinion, is that look at this right now. Look at all of us coming together around a common good and a common cause and a common belief of equality and inclusion. So to me, the negative is outweighed by the positive, that it brings us together to fight together, to unite as a global human family. And I appreciated you saying something about Al Gore, by the way, and not taking my resignation that day when I went in to resign because a federal agency was watching my partner and I through our window of our home. And it leads me to one thing. I want to set the stage here for our discussion and my contributions to it. Allies, allies, allies. Al Gore was my ally. And what I want to say to our LGBTQ brothers and sisters around the world is we need to find our allies, like Sriram Iyer, for example, and Business Insider, right? And then you guys are brothers, and it really affirms one other thing I wanted to share with all of us today. Personalize. People ask me all the time, how did you guys get marriage, right? Gay marriage. How did you do this? How did we get a lot of hard work, as all of you know, because you're doing it every day in India and around the world for that matter. But I've always come to one conclusion. The reason the little progress we've made and the progress yet to be made, in my humble opinion, it's personalizing the issue. As soon as people realize, oh, my cousin, my sister, my brother, my uncle, my aunt, my grandmother, my grandfather, right? My son, my daughter, my coworker, my co-church worker, co-church attender, soon as it's personalized, in my opinion, right? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Just a little word of caution. In India, it ends in honor killing the moment it's personal.
It ends in what?
Honor killing. If it's my
God, well, I'm
nephew,
not. Then you all have to come visit me then, because I'm not going to.
But yeah, for it to move forward, I guess that has to happen. I take your point. And therefore, Harish, I'm coming to you next. What is the next step? Is it directly same-sex marriage, or are there steps in between?
I think the first roadblock was basically to have Section 377 read down, and it was important. It was funny enough that the whole world was interested. At least everyone was interested in the way gay people have sex. Now we have got that off the list. Now, as long as we have sex with a consenting adult and in private, irrespective of your gender, it doesn't really matter. So that's what Section 377. But that's only the stepping stone. Now, personally, I feel anti-discrimination laws are the most essential. The Trans Act needs a relook right now. And I think that, but anything that the first step, the first founding step was Section 377. Now we can go parallelly. Anyone who feels what they feel strongly about, I feel anti-discrimination laws are a must. Just as and the good thing is that we have examples of the of US who had Prop 8, and they had so many challenges, and we know that, and that's a positive of being a late bloomer, that you get to see the mistakes that everyone else has done, and we can proceed forward from all their mistakes. So I think That's one very good thing. And we are one big, vibrant community all across the world. We are one community.
So no, so essentially, like in terms of next steps, what are you like? Can you line it up for us? This is first. This is
I
second.
think anti-discrimination laws is the first, according to me. And then comes also the Trans Act, which needs to be which needs to have a relook. And then comes marriage and other things for me. But for somebody else, it would mean something else.
So how far down the line do you see these play out? Is this a 3-year project, 2-year project, 5-year project?
One can, we might win battles in courtrooms, but to change mindsets, it's a lifelong process. It's a lifelong process. It's not something that's
exactly you're leading to my next question. To the Prince, Manvendra, are we moving too fast? Law means nothing if your neighbor can't put up with the idea that, there is somebody who's a gay or a lesbian or a bisexual who's in the next door. And, I'm going to tell the landlord that don't lease out the house to these people. They party too much, they have sex a lot, and they make a lot of noise.
While having sex.
I didn't mention that. I didn't say that, Harish. I didn't say whether it was the noises during the sex or the party. It was very clinically phrased, that sentence. So, Manvendra, yeah.
I think he just said we have orgies. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah.
So, Manvendra, over to you now.
So, I must tell you something interesting about India, which I think most of us are aware, but I would like to bring this point out, is that even though in our country there's so much of homophobia is there and there's hypocrisy is there, but one thing is there that our country, homosocial behavior has been accepted. And I'm guessing what you mean by homosocial behavior is that when two same sex are together, either they are men or they are women, seen in public or in private, that is accepted by us. But when it's opposite sex coming together, that is not that easily accepted. So in a way, we are like, it's not that, I mean, when I compare it with America and other places, like we are a little bit better off in that sense that the homosocial behavior is being accepted, where two men could hang around together or two women can hang around together. But having said that,
without specifying whether they are gay or not.
Without specifying, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, having said that, I would like to agree to what Mo has said and what Harish has also said, is that we definitely need to have more allies. We need to be more inclusive, because I think we should start working on issues of other communities as well, and not just focus on our community, because that way, if we are able to understand other people's issues, then I have experienced that the others also start accepting us, and thereby we are trying to form more and more allies. And talking about Harish's viewpoint, I agree to his viewpoint also, that it's too early to talk about marriage rights and adoption rights and all, because I have experienced that many people have told me that they don't even agree to what the Supreme Court has said. I mean, though we have made a landmark judgment, but there is a lot of education still needed to be done about the law, why Supreme Court took this step, why it was necessary to read this law down. Though that education is very much important, because unless and until people realize that it was necessary to change this law and what is the history behind it, it will be difficult for us to change the mindset of the society. So because I mean, I know people will respect the Supreme Court because that is the highest authority.
Yes, I think essentially we all agree that law is good. It's changing the law is an empowering thing. It basically tells people that you're on the right side of things, but it doesn't mean anything unless people accept it. And but yeah, Manvendra, to your point about the homosocial behavior, Indian men holding their pinkies while walking, we've been doing that for centuries. So it was. I think that will stop, because once they get more aware of, oh my God, this might be considered as a homosexual behavior. That's my fear. That little quirk that Indians have.
Yeah.
Anyway, So now, talking about allies, Nitasha, I'm going to come to you with this, and I'm going to start straight to the point where this is going to lead us to the conversation about political correctness. Recently, someone I see as an ally, I assume is an as an ally, which is Dave Chappelle, a comedian in the US. Made a sort of a joke about the transgender community. He was probably a little loose with his words, and that ended up riling up a lot of people. And he makes a reference to that in his recent special on Netflix. This is not a plug for Netflix, maybe on some other platform. But having said that, so I think and I'm going to use the phrase that he uses there. He basically says that there are a lot of things that I don't understand. That includes a lot of choices that others make, right? But that doesn't mean I am against them, right? How would you respond to that? It is possible and it is true that a lot of people in India and around the world do not understand the choices that transgender people make. And it is probably going to be a journey for them to get to the part, that whole 5 stages of grief: denial, shock, anger, and then acceptance. So is it too slow in India, or is it all right? Is the space all right?
Well, what I feel is, it's very important, like, every individual around the world, even in India, they understand that who is a transgender woman? A transgender woman is a woman with a history, with the history of, going through a journey of pain, going through a journey of a lot of hard work, understand her true identity, So, people have been doing this for a very long time, be it starting from the Bollywood industry, even like your late friends, which even I have faced in my life, where people have made fun of trans women and transgender individuals, right? So, but that is something I would never support, and it's very wrong because, you are pointing at someone's personal beliefs and choices, which is not right. Being a citizen of a country, I think every individual should respect one another in that sense. Like for example, like suppose if I see someone who doesn't have legs, people used to make fun of them as well. I've seen in my own eyes. So then I realized that I can be on the same chair as in the next 5 years. So then people will laugh at me. So that is where people then have a mindset to change. So this is something that people have been doing, and it's wrong. And coming back to the allies, I think we are. But this lot of to be done, especially when it comes to employment, education. I always say that education is something that can really change from the basic structure of any plan. Because education is something that most transgender women and transgender individuals in India are lacking of. So when I represented India abroad, I had only one thing in mind. I just had one thing in mind that 5 people are not same. 5 people will have different features, different looks, different mindset. So 5 trans people will also have different features and mindset. So let's talk about those people who do not have the privilege of like coming to the cities, being like mostly in the villages. They're killed, they're slaughtered, they're lynched. I've seen so many news in this. I myself have got a lot of news like this. That really breaks my heart. Being in a country. And,
so essentially, are you saying that people are, 1.5 years after the law was passed, we're going to be in 3 months, it'll be 2 years. Is the acceptance of the society, is it still too slow? Is that what you're saying?
Of course, I'll put it like this, at this point of time with my experience, a straight man is ready to accept, some straight man is ready to accept a transgender individual who is possible. Okay, who looks beautiful, who talks beautiful, like that. But then, as I say, that 5 fingers are not same, 5 trans women will not be same. So, everybody has to be under one spectrum. For me, I always thought that I say community is one, and that's humanity. We ourselves label each other, like this community, that community. It's only humanity. Because you got my hand.
I'm glad you brought up this idea of beauty in the context of transgenders. I mean, it's not something that is often spoken about, at least in conversations. I know there are a lot of people who fantasize, and there are a lot of activities that have been going on for eons. It's not a new thing. But this idea of beauty as a determining factor in social hierarchy, right? If you are a beautiful transgender, you probably will get away with it. And,
Right.
and that is an interesting thought, that you would probably agree, you are in agreement with somebody who you would otherwise agree with completely. And that's a man called Jordan Peterson, who basically sort of, who went out on he totally, there was a law that was passed in Canada a couple of years ago that allowed transgender people to choose their pronoun. I mean, so if I were to meet you on the streets or somewhere at a party, the first thing I need to do is ask you how to refer to you. Are you a he or a she? And that choice was what sort of, made concrete by law. And that is something that created a huge debate. And essentially, it became a question on identity politics. It was the people who disagreed gave it the color of identity politics. And that's why it ended up pushing away a lot of people against the law, instead of warming them up to the idea and having a conversation. And which is why I want to go to more with this next question. More, the idea of identity politics, if this is something that is seen as identity politics, do you think we've seen what happens when a black man is voted as president? It pushes so many people away that it's followed by Donald Trump. It freaks people out so much that they are like, oh my God, Trump is better, right? Is that something that could play out in this sphere as well, in the context of LGBTQ rights?
I want, if I could real quickly share one thought on political correctness, and then I'll be glad to address the identity politics. I think that for years, and I've been kind of controversial by saying this, and I think that political correctness, we in the LGBTQ community are not immune from how political correctness, how we use it as well. Let me give you an example. The truth of the matter is that 90-something% of gay men and lesbians don't really understand transgender. Okay? That is the truth of the matter. We are being politically correct by saying we're standing in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in the transgender community. But the reality is that we don't understand it any better than anybody else, right? Really? So instead of being, I don't like to be in solidarity with Natasha because it's politically correct. I believe that we need to be in solidarity with Natasha because it's the right thing to do and it's the human thing to do. It's about the fact that if you understand pain and anguish and being bullied and being disenfranchised and being voiceless, then I don't need to understand what it feels like to be trapped in the wrong gender, in the wrong body. I don't need to fully understand that to fight with Natasha. See what I'm saying? To be by her side. Absolutely. And so I think we're not immune from political correctness is what I'm trying to say.
I'm going to say this. I'm going to admit to a fault of mine here. So in that question, I referred to, I used the word black instead of African-American president. I think that that is a mistake on my part. But is that something that is acceptable, even legally? I mean, because I obviously didn't mean it in a way, in a derogatory way, right? Is that something that's acceptable?
Yes, absolutely. Look, I think what we're going through in the United States is as a political scientist right now, and I'm doing a lot of media, as you know, every day I do a lot of media on this election because of my relationship with Joe Biden. Look, here's the root of our problem. I hate to make it so simple, but it is this simple. Racism in the United States has been empowered by Donald Trump. He has, being that we're on an LGBTQ panel, you guys will appreciate this. I say this in the media all the time. Donald Trump has given racists the opportunity to come out of the racist closet. Okay, so they have their own closet that they're coming out of. We all can come out of our closet, right? But he has empowered them, and he has made it okay. He's normalized hatred. And this is what I meant by going back to allies. We have to find people who have good souls and good hearts and good minds that are pure, who believe in that common humanity of love and kindness, and that at the end of the day, we're all exactly the same. We love and we want to be loved. We dream, we aspire, right? We're no different than anybody else. And so to me, it's about finding allies who recognize that. And that's what we're up against in the United States right now. It is a very scary time. Let me be very clear. Just remember, up until last week, we could be fired for being gay in our workplace.
I'm going to come to that point, but I want to get the reaction from everyone on the panel. Does everyone agree that you can't? I mean, is it a fair view that you can't hold everyone to every word that they say and sort of keep pointing out their mistakes, troll them on Twitter, and instead of understanding that they probably, without understanding where they're coming from, it might be a loose word, a loose phrase, etc. Everyone in agreement? Please say aye.
I think I think the
I said, please say I, not I. But carry on, please, Harish. Yeah. Add your thoughts.
I think the onus of inclusion comes on those who are included, not on those who are excluded. And while we understand that the onus of inclusion comes on those who are included, we also need to understand from where are these thoughts coming, that there is a trajectory to a certain thought. Of course, it's not okay for somebody to use the incorrect gender pronouns.
Yeah.
But but it's also important to see where that's coming from at times, is that, or to refer to many a times we are referred to as it rather than he or she. Even people from
that's obviously unacceptable. Yeah.
So
people wouldn't allow that for their pets. Seriously, I mean, I don't even know I don't know where that comes from. I'm totally in disagreement with that. Yeah.
So the whole thing is, people can be most respectable. Can respect a lot of people, but not use the right language.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's important to understand where it's coming from that perspective, and it's important to educate even after telling the person, if that person is add any swear word, then then that's a problem. Then there's definitely a problem.
So first step is to educate them and then correct them and whatever. But would you? So a lot of people, and I'm not saying this is my argument. I'm sort of borrowing arguments and throwing it out there and getting a reaction. Because honestly, I am trying to understand what is the right way to speak about this and address it. So, for example, somebody like a Stephen Fry, right, who's a lifelong liberal, a gay himself, he is on the other side of this argument. He thinks that people should be allowed to use whatever the word they want. Like he's openly said that. I don't remember the exact the British views for that is, but he's like, if you want to call me this, it's fine, as long as I know it's a joke and I know you as a person. I'm not going to object and say that you're not supposed to tell me this. I'm not going to be friends with you anymore.
Intent. He is intent.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So is that something that all of us agree on?
Yes.
Of course.
Right. So because a lot of people, even my friends, like some people who are very, very sort of passionate about climate or the environment, cleanliness, right? If they yell at other friends, if they just throw out a cigarette stub on the street, right? There's the fight, and there's like, oh my God, I'm not going to talk to you. People like you are ruining this environment, but not realizing that these are things they've stopped using. He's the same person, the guy who's throwing the cigarette butt, has stopped using single-use plastic. It's a step. It's an evolution. People are coming to terms with a lot of new realities. So these are examples.
To change behavior is still possible, but to change beliefs is going to be a long-lasting stuff. So language comes from behavior, but to change beliefs is going to take some time.
Think about it. We're at 240 something years. 240 something years we've had racism in the United States.
Yeah.
And it's still
yeah, I think I mean, we keep talking about a lot of right-wing trolls, etc., on Twitter, the alt-right and those kind of people, as well as the radical left. But I think what is true, and everybody say, if you agree with me, just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right. I think everybody should take pause for a moment and see why they are getting offended. Yes, no.
True. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Great. So now let's come to the point of out the rules of the land and what is the realities. What are the policies that we should focus on?
There is.
Would you like to see that is feasible and how soon, and or would you like to see other changes before that comes about?
I think we lost you there for a little bit, so I don't know.
Lost you. It was stuck. It was stuck.
Okay. So would you like to have the right to choose your pronoun in India, or is it something not necessary? At least not immediately.
Well, I think, if you're like from my beliefs and with the kind of, I've seen over the years of 7-8 years of my transition days, I think a person should be addressed as the person wants to be. Because, we are the ones who elect the government, right? So we are the ones who select the prime minister, the president, because of our one vote counts. So, they are out to look after us as individuals. So, if that is not being taken care of, I think that is very wrong, which is already we are faced in my, with my people already for, having the Transgenders Rights and Protection Act with lots of, problems happening over it. So I think if in coming back to pronouns, pronouns, I think it's very personal for everyone. If someone wants to be addressed as he, let it be. She, let it be. It is something that, when you mention it is something, even a dog is a living being, it's breathing like us, so it's almost same. So we should not put it on anything, that's something like, putting someone very down. So I think this is something should be taken care of and given the liberty of choice, to individuals and to the people of the LGBTQI entire people,
Great. I think on that note, I want to take it to the next level. So we've addressed the need for, taking this argument forward. We have addressed for those of the viewers who are joining us now, and the need for the political correctness. Where should it start and where should it stop? Basically, the intent. I have a counterpoint to that, which I've learned during the Me Too movement, but I'll come to that later because I want to address the identity politics argument that is likely to be used against all of us in the days to come when this movement goes forward. So, Manvendra, one argument that comes from a sort of a radical, I wouldn't say call him a radical leftist, but someone who's a self-proclaimed Marxist, who's had a critical view of both the capitalist societies and the socialist societies, philosopher Slavoj Žižek, he argues that the fact that you would insist on being called LGBTQIA+, itself is a setback for the community. It is a name that is being given by the privileged, those who are quote unquote normal, and that this community should dismiss that tag and that everybody is essentially a plus. This is a society that has diverse. LGBTQIA+ essentially means that I have. It's a very colonial mindset. I have discovered these tribes of people, and I expect to discover more. Whereas the reality essentially is that there are possibly 150 different sexualities in this world, and we can, or even more, and we can possibly never discover them all. Is that something that you would agree with, or is that something that you would disagree with?
See, I think I have two views for this. Of course, we keep on adding this. First it was LGBT, and then now God knows how many more it has gone from A to Z. But we keep adding the different. So I think for our purpose, for our convenience sake, what we like to identify as it's good to have an identity for ourselves. But I think it's not necessary that we would like this whole acronym to be increased to that extent that it becomes confusing for a lot of people. So now what I am observing, and especially in the young generation, when I'm talking to themselves, they don't even want to be called lesbian or say gay or trans and all. They are just using one simple word, and that is queer.
Yeah.
So though queer was seen not correct in the earlier days, but nowadays I'm seeing a lot of young generation youngsters are using the word queer. They said we don't want to have a label for ourselves. We just want to say we are queer. So I think that's also fine with me. I mean, if you just want don't want to increase
very socially awkward people like me will enter a party and somebody will say I'm a queer, or we get introduced as a queer, and I cannot leave the party without asking the person queer in what way. Because my curiosity
Yeah.
will kill me, and I will get
Yeah.
I'll be the bad guy there. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think so. You are broadly in agreement with what Zizek says, that this is
Yeah,
essentially.
I mean, yeah, because see, I have heard this from many people that y'all keep increasing this. It keeps on increasing every time we enter into a new kind of experience. We are always having y'all increase and which is a fact. I mean, I have also since last 20-25 years, since the time I have been active, I've seen there's a lot of alphabets are increased now. So we have also almost covered all
but
the
it's not just a
alphabets.
decision made. No, I'm saying it's not a decision to call yourself queer. Is not based just on the discomfort of adding alphabets. There is a philosophy to it, which is essentially saying
Yeah.
that just because you don't know doesn't mean I have to keep defining myself every time, right? Changing the definition of. But there is a flip side to it. There is the counterpoint to it is this argument, the impact of this argument, the impact of giving up this collective identity, is basically that it helps those people who do not want you to be a collective force. It sort of plays into their hands, right? Are you willing to pay that price? It kind of divides this community.
Yeah, sometimes when I'm using in talking in media or anywhere else, I don't even use these words. I say we are a sexual diversity community. So I'm removing the words L, I'm removing G and V and T and everything. I say we are sexual diversity because ultimately we are one community, whether whatever label you want to use them, but that is a general word which I kind of use many times. But then within that you can have different branches, and then you are free to use whatever.
A lot of people use sexual minorities. A lot of people use
sexual
sexual
minorities
diversity.
also. Yeah, I use sexual diversity. So
Diversity.
it all depends from person to person. Yeah.
So Mo, your thoughts on this?
Yeah.
Because this is an identity politics. Do you think that LGBTQIA keeps the community together and also presents the community together to those who want to attack it?
Yes, I do. I do think it keeps the community together. I'd like to go back to just, I think, a square one here. Everyone on this right now is an activist in their own right, in what they do across their country or around the world. I don't know. I can't speak on behalf of everybody else, but I can tell you this. We all share the same objective: equality, inclusion, to be respected and celebrated for exactly who we are in every aspect of the journey of life. When we get to that point, I have no problems dropping the LGBTQ, A, B, C, D, L, M, all the letters, right? But so I agree with the premise that the goal is we want a day where we don't have to define ourselves with letters because we're treated exactly the same in everyday life as anybody else with complete and total equality. Until then, we have to do this because we've got, first of all, we're stronger in numbers. We're stronger together. It helps us create role models for younger LGBTQ so that they don't commit suicide at these alarming rates, so that they see that people are like them, that you can be a prince and love a man, that you can be a trans queen and be absolutely stunningly beautiful like Natasha, right? That you can be incredible like Harish, right? So we got to be role models, and until that day is no longer needed, I think we have to continue to identify in these ways to make sure that we keep these kids alive, frankly, and give them hope.
That's one. That's the other sort of I don't want to call it pessimistic, but a slightly cautious view of this. It's a sort of bottom up approach. The other thing is, I think a lot is being said and written about the pink dollar. The fact that the LGBTQ community in the US has managed to come this far is a whole big reason for that is because they're rich. They made up a lot. They've made a lot of money. Is that something that is true? Or is it just an accusation?
No, remember, we all LGBTQ community members around the world, most of us, right?
Mhm.
This is changing, but most of us don't have children. So it's not that we're rich. We just happen to have more disposable income because we're not spending thousands and thousands of dollars on diapers and food for children and paying for university for our children. We have extra money. And let's all face it, we like to spend it on our fashion.
So that's one, and it also gives you the power, the growing number as a voters, a pie of voters is also something that gives you a better say in the
Absolutely.
corridors of power.
It's power. Voting
Yeah.
is power. That's all there is to it. And this is another reason why I still support us staying with the letters. I can't add I'm with the Prince. We can't add too many more letters because I'm at an age where I can't remember all the letters if we're not careful. Right? But I still think we need all the letters, and we need to stick together because this is how we empower one another. Right?
So we're going to enter the last leg of our discussion. I want to once again, whoever is joining us right now or watching, jumped in between, I want to round up what all we've discussed so far. One is the conversation needs to move forward. We can easily replace the entire, the range of alphabets LGBTQIA+ into a queer, sexually diverse, sexual minority, whatever way you like. It is not compulsory. It is not offensive if you don't use that word. We are getting this from a bunch of people who are authorities in this space. We will take our cues from them. Number 3 is for all those people who are wondering, political correctness. How important is it? Am I going to be lynched for saying something wrong even while I understand it? No. But the responsibility is on both sides. When you are meeting somebody from a community that you don't understand, and it doesn't have to be only gender based, it might be on the basis of race, religion, whatever it is, as long as you're trying to make an honest effort to understand them and treat them with respect, it doesn't matter what you say. And that is the cue for the other side, people who are out there trying to claim they find a reason to get offended, whether it's on the radical right or the radical left. I think we need to sort of bring people together. That's how we build allies, and that's how far we've reached in the last half an hour or so of this conversation. The next leg is how do we deal with some of the questions? I found this somewhere. There was a teacher in the UK, and a 9-year-old kid came to her. The idea of making this conversation ubiquitous, right? Everybody is talking about this. Everybody should talk about this. Children should be sensitized and made sure that they understand, so that there is no bullying in school. A lot has been said about this. There is a flip side. How does a teacher address this, right? A 9-year-old kid comes and wants to talk about his or her sexual preference, or or whether they want to become, they think of themselves as a transgender, etc. How does a teacher deal with it, Natasha? Should they say that you're a 9-year-old, it's too soon for you to talk about this, or deal with it and say that, this is not the time for you to know, or say that, it's your right, so go ahead and be what you want to?
Well, when I was in St. Xavier's, Calcutta, and we had, there's a chapter in biology that we had was the anatomy of male and female, right? That was in class 9 that we started. So, we learned about the reproductive organs of a male and a female and how babies are born and everything, which is the fact of life. So, I always thought, with time that these biology books, teachers' duty.
Xavier's Calcutta, so it was ICSE, right?
Yeah. I was in ICSE.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we had this. I'm also from Calcutta, but I was from the state board, and honestly, we had it in the 7th or 8th standard.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't even realize we were talking about sex.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize we were talking about sex. Because I was possibly talking more about sex with the classmate next to me, but I didn't realize the teacher was talking about sex.
It was like, we students will remember that the next chapter is, reproductive organs. Everybody was very excited.
Yeah.
There was no bunking of class. So, young kids, young boys, and I was in a boys' school that time, and I myself was.
I was probably not paying attention. All I knew was the teacher started with toad, and I said, I'm not interested.
so, like in my opinion, I think biology books should have, a separate section where they teach about transgender. What is the, the psychological factors about it and everything, because, that will.
No, but
help
what is the right age for it? You think 7th, 8th, 9th standard is fine?
Of course. If
Yeah.
I'm learning reproductive organs in class 7, 8, 9, then why not then?
Okay.
Of course, that's the right age, because the millennial crowd, the young crowd will understand and be more sensitized. When they're in college or they're meeting other people from the the entire spectrum of rainbow people. So then they will understand them better.
Harish, what is your answer? If a 9-year-old
I-
comes to you and says, wants to, I'm not talking about the 7th, 8th, 9th, that is 15, 16, whatever, right? I'm talking about something lesser. Because there are so many conversation, movies, stand-up
think-
comedy. If a
I think
9-year-old comes
suicide-
to you and says, what will you say?
Suicide is so common. Death by suicide is so common within the LGBT community, and there isn't a certain age. Before the confusion and before the trauma actually kicks in, you should be, parents and teachers have the responsibility to tell their children that you have to be the true, authentic self of who you are. They are not asking to get a sex affirmation surgery at that age, but the concept of sex, sexuality and gender is something that very young we need to teach them. I'll tell you a very small example, Sriram. There was my niece. I was dating my partner, and I took my partner home, and my niece was there, and she basically calls me mama, which means uncle, for more, and then the moment I was mama, the moment I got her introduced to my partner, she started calling him Yash Mami, which means Mami is auntie.
Possibly you
So-
guys hadn't decided who was what role play
It
that
did-
you
it didn't
both were
matter.
doing, but she
just
decided it
knew
for
that
you.
I was her uncle, so who comes with uncle is auntie. So it didn't matter what his gender was, what Yash's gender was, or what his sex was. It only mattered. So children do not discriminate. Children
right.
are quick to understand. It's adults. Discrimination is a taught trait which we treat and adults teach them. If you tell a very young child that what you can grow up to be, all that parents and teachers need to tell them, you need to be the true, authentic self of who you are and have the courage to be that. Nothing more. And it's very easy. It's not rocket science to teach them.
I think a lot of this whole idea of sensitizing people early in schools, in colleges, in universities, all of those. A lot of times the allegation thrown at the progressives is that you have taken over the institutions, the academia, the colleges, all the professors, the JNU and the Mo, you can tell me. I don't know the classification in the US what universities are seen, but broadly most universities faculty, they're all seen as people who are pushing the progressive ideology, the ideology. But if these children are getting sort of trained in those settings, in that environment with those kind of thoughts, how is it that year after year these people come out of their schools, colleges, universities, and a bunch of them, a majority of them, go back to being the insensitive lot? How does that happen?
Well, you know what? I actually have to very respectfully disagree a little bit with you on the premise. Again, it may be a different experience in India, so I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't want to be insensitive to that difference. But
No,
I have
it's not
to tell
my
you,
argument. It's a charge thrown at institutions. It's not my
Yeah,
argument.
I don't agree with that. And let me tell you why I don't agree with that. Because I think Harish said something very powerful. You don't come out of your mother's womb hating.
Yeah.
You don't come out of your mother's womb discriminating. We're taught to hate, right? And so I really believe, by the way, I want to point out the correlation you just made. You said that progressives tend to be the educators in these institutions of higher education and learning. Well, you know what? It's not our fault as progressives that we happen to be smart.
No, but I'm saying that if it is really being institutionalized in that sense, and this argument has been made since the late 80s. Right?
Yeah.
But how is it
Look
that
at millennials and look at Gen Z right now. I always go to the millennials and go to Gen Z. I don't know about in India, but in the United States, we're talking in the 80-something percentile
Mm.
of millennials and Gen Z in the United States. They don't see a difference between, they love the word binary. I still don't know what binary even means. But my God, ask a millennial in the US, they're like, oh, I'm binary. I'm like, what are you what? You know, so they don't even, honestly.
Is it worth exploring? Even I don't know. Is it worth asking? On the...
I'm not the right person to ask 'cause I don't know whether it means you're.
Whoever is curious, please go and Google. Don't let.
Well, another one is
Yeah.
fluid.
Ah.
Fluid.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, wow, this is a whole different. My only point is that I think that every generation that comes now,
Mm.
right, is getting better and better about understanding that Natasha is no different than me and you, right? That Harish is no different than you, his brother Sriram,
Mhm.
right? You might have different sexual orientations, right? But you're no different. At the end of the day, you're both still striving to live a journey that is fulfilling and satisfying, and to do right and to do well and do good. You know, and that's what I encourage all of us to remind our straight allies.
More
Really,
use such
we don't need to
beautiful
talk about
words
how
for,
we're
as if we
different.
have
Let's
purpose
talk
in
about
life.
how we're alike.
In Mumbai, there's only one purpose in life: pay your rent. I don't, so, that's all.
And I thought it was going to be.
Cause.
I thought it was going to be to eat as much papadum as possible.
No. In people living in Mumbai are just trying to make rent for the next month.
I understand. I
Yeah.
understand.
No matter which, I mean, which strata of society you belong to, there is no bigger cause than that.
But all joking aside, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's the commonality of humanity. We're all just trying to survive and do the best we can on this gift of life. It's a gift, this journey.
Mm-hmm.
And we just are all trying to do the best we can. And we just want to be treated with respect and love. That's it. It's that simple. It is that simple. All these other things are complications. And if you keep it that simple, in my humble opinion, we get a lot more allies because they all realize, wait a minute, I don't need to talk about who Harish is and his partner. I don't need to know what goes on in his bedroom, right? The fact that he loves his partner, that's all I need to know. He loves. He loves.
That's about it.
I can relate to that. He loves.
Anyone else? Closing thoughts, Manvendra? Do you want me to throw a question, or is there something that you would like to add or subtract from?
Yeah, see, I am agreeing to what the other panelists are saying. I mean, my humble thing is that to the Indians is that we come from the land of Kama Sutra. You know, we don't have to forget that. You know, we are the country which was leading in the world's oldest encyclopedia. And now we come to a stage where we are even not even wanting to talk about sex. So forget about our other issues, homosexuality and all are still far beyond. So I think we should start looking at past our culture and not start blaming the culture that our culture is bad and this and that. I mean, we are the oldest culture where we have openly talked about sex. We have got temples which have open depiction of sculptures of not just heteroerotic but homoerotic also. Paintings are there. Then why are we still shy to talk about this to at any age, you know, whether you're 9-year-old or you're 14-year-old. So, and it's high time we start talking because I mean, as many of us are agreed, there's so many suicides happening because of this confusion. Because at that age we are not able to understand. I'm working with a lot of schools at the moment. I'm working with even I was invited to USA. Where in Iowa there was a school which invited me, where there is a lot of bullying happening with regards to LGBT issues. So these kind of issues have to be handled at that age where the confusion starts. Otherwise, then we have to lead. We will be neglecting it, and it will be resulting in so many deaths already happening.
I think that's a beautiful. I think the teachers, the school teachers, etc., especially now with this whole online education catching steam, it's going to be a little tricky. I think people have to make an effort to understand how to make sure that the sensitization happens in an adequate format. and in an adequate this thing. Harish?
I think Sriram, it doesn't. I'll again come to the point. The onus of inclusion comes on those who are included and not on those who are excluded.
So,
So
can you highlight like make it simpler for viewers?
What I
When
what
you
I
say
mean to
included,
say is that
you
if-
and I are there, the onus is on me, not on you.
no, I'm not trying to say that. What I'm trying to speak on a broader sense is that if there is a community, any community, it doesn't need to be an LGBT community per se.
Yeah.
It's not shifting blame and telling that you are responsible or I am responsible. It's far more easier for somebody who has privileges to make space for somebody else, and that's why the onus comes on those who are included rather than somebody who's outside, who is a minority, who are very few in number, to actually come out and say that, hey, please get me included. So and diversity helps everybody. Inclusion helps everybody. It helps profits. It helps the GDP. India loses around 1.1% of its GDP to homophobia, transphobia, biphobia. So that simply means that if we all, a rising tide lifts all boats, and rising awareness lifts all boats too, and it'll lift economies too, and it'll make people more happier too when everything is kinder and everything is this thing. This is not to refer to a bunch of people and to hold them responsible and to expect that they are woke right from the womb, but it's important to understand, to reflect, and to correct course if there is a chance to do so. So that's what's needed. And once we are on that path, I think we would be in a much safer, much kinder world where we don't have where we have lesser number of suicides.
And I think there is a Pew Research Center research report that has come out just yesterday, and that tells us the state of affairs. I think I want to close this debate with this little bit of data, because at the end, I'm a journalist. I know I wanted this to be a storytelling, a fun conversation. I hope we had that. But I still want to underline the data that is out there, and it will give us some perspective on the level of progress that we as Indians have made in this particular sphere, in accepting, let's say, homosexuality. And the research report says that India, there are 37% people who say homosexuality should be accepted by society. And that contrasts with 85% in Canada, 72% in America, Mexico 69%. Brazil is like miles ahead of us. We are more or less similar stages of development as an economy, as a society. 67% Brazil. Europe, most countries are in the 80% bracket. Sweden is 94. Poland is 47, much closer to us. The countries where there needs to be a lot of progress, where people don't accept homosexuality as a factor in society. Turkey 25%, Russia 14%, and so therefore we also should be careful about who we pick as our role models, right? I don't want this to become another debate where people say, do you think you will be allowed to say this in China and Saudi Arabia? I don't think that should be the case. I think we should look at people who are better off and for the right reasons. With that, I would like to thank each one of you for joining us. We're completely timed out. I think we've covered exactly an hour. There was some issue with the broadcast, so it will be sort of packaged again and released today itself. So for those of you who have been disappointed by the sudden shutdown of the broadcast, it will come again. And thank you so much, each one of you, for joining us. Let's stay in touch and take this cause forward one step at a time.
And let's ensure that Joe wins America.
Oh,
Okay,
Harish.
I'm not saying that. It's not my job.
But Harish is.
I can say that.
But exactly. Harish is saying it. I'm saying it. I hope the prince is saying it.
I
and
hope-
I hope Natasha's saying it too.
Yes.
Let the best candidate win, and let the American voters decide who is good for them.
It's hope versus hate. It's real simple.
Okay.
And to all of the other panelists, I send you the biggest hug. Hug, okay? I'm so proud of each of you. I'm really deeply touched today to get to spend this time with you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you,
happy
Mo.
Pride, happy Pride to all of you.
Happy
Yeah.
Pride to all.
Pride, that's right.
This probably has been the quietest Pride month in recent years.
Yeah.
God damn this COVID-19. It's brought down all celebrations. But I'm sure you guys have, September is the month where we will be celebrating the second anniversary of the Supreme Court verdict that legalized or
September
rather
6th.
scrapped Section 377.
We-
I hope by that time we are in a festive mode and this, this
That's right.
pandemic is behind us.
That's right. And we have you fooled, Shriram. We celebrate all year round. We don't just get 1 month. So don't worry about it.
Pride month.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All the best. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Thanks
Thank you.
everyone who tuned in
Thank you.
to this
Thank
special broadcast on Business
Thank
Insider.
you.
This is Sri Ramayar signing off.